There are chemicals that are getting out in our environment that are affecting us. One of them is called bisphenol A, or BPA for short. BPA is a chemicals additive that goes into plastics. It's what makes them curve. You know, like your plastic water bottle, it makes it round and easy to be malleable when they're forming them. But unfortunately, BPA also leaches into any food that is being carried in that container. That's why they're recommending people, not drink so much out of plastic water bottles. Pregnant women are supposed to reduce their exposure to things that are, in plastic, like plastic water bottles. It's BPA as a chemical has been banned in the EU and Canada. Here in the United States, baby bottle makers voluntarily stopped using BPA because it had been found to leach into babies' food and milk, and that it was actually being found in the bloodstream of children. 93% of Americans have bisphenol A in our blood. Babies are born pre-contaminated with it. So this is a big deal.
So what are the positive health consequences of having this in your system?
There aren't any as far as we know, except maybe the convenience of being hydrated on the go.
But there are negative health consequences.
Oh, there are definitely negative.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we get into. There's a question about what exactly the negative health consequences of BPA are. It has not been studied over the long term. There have been a lot of studies just in the last several years that have shown a correlation with reproductive health problems. They can't tease out whether it's causation or not. So one of the things that they fear is that this BPA influence, especially in males, both in the womb and as young children, that high exposure to BPA can actually affect them reproductively, like the testicles don't descend and they are feminized. So this is something guys should be extremely aware of. One of the things that they're doing, though, this for the first time, this is a pretty interesting study. For the first time, these scientists were able to demonstrate directly in the lab that BPA, when applied to cells, actually does have a direct effect. And what I thought was so interesting about the way that they did this particular study, it was in Paris at Diderot University. What they did was that they actually took human fetal testicles that were alive. They kept them alive, it's possible to do that, and they sliced them. And they put them in little petri dishes, little sliced testicles, which to me just sounds so hilarious. I'm sorry. And then they applied BPA to it, and they said that it actually responded and reacted. It showed that this particular kind of hormone actually does inhibit the development of future sperm in the fetus. In other words, it has a long-term, lifelong effect, and it means that sliced testicle is never going to make sperm again, or it's going to have difficulty doing that. So this is a potentially very big deal.
Or the person who would have had the whole testicle unsliced
right,
at that point. The sliced testicle is not making much of anything.
The sliced testicle is not actually part of how it, but that's how they did say that, look, we can actually see that there's an effect here, that people, that suggests that BPA could actually affect men's ability to produce sperm after they reach reproductive age.
Okay, let's go a little bit wider with this, because I'm now starting to get a little bit scared. So you got the BPA that might be affecting infants, and they might grow up and 18, 20, 30 years later they have a problem getting a woman pregnant and they have no idea why. And it's not because of anything that they did. It's because of a product that their mother used that she had no idea that had a negative health consequence. I've talked a lot about the lead study that I'm obsessed with now, about how lead in the brain can cause violent crime and all that stuff. So what I wonder is, in the world that we're living in, where we know that there are harmful chemicals out there, and we're starting to get a grasp on what some of them are doing, how much damage are we going to do to ourselves as a species before we identify all of these and the various disparate ways that they affect the brains of fetuses and violent crime 30 years later? It seems like we're living in an incredibly dangerous world in a way that hundreds of years ago we weren't introducing all these different types of chemicals into the environment.
Yeah. Well, even just 20 years ago. We weren't living in this kind of polluted world that we've created. We have this, when you look at the actual output of the chemical industry just in the United States, it's exploded. It has geometrically progressed so that we have way more chemicals that are now in the environment than we ever thought before. And the other part of it, the other aspect that people don't really talk about much, is we don't know what these chemicals do in combination. We don't know if, say, the pesticide that's used on the corn that you use will interact with the BPA on the bottled water that you drink, and then, on top of it, there are the other hormones that are also, in your milk, and other aspects that, we don't know what these things do together. how they react together or what the long-term consequences of any of them are, because the way that our government is structured right now, the EPA only examines pesticides or chemicals, and they haven't even looked at all of them. There are so many chemicals that have not been tested, but they don't look at them for a very long time either. So we just don't have the research basis to be able to make that determination.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think also it says they banned bottles, right? So it seems like they're banning a lot of products that are directly in contact with us. But I think we need to stop and think about the indirect consequences, right? And the indirect steps. So they're being used. These bottles and these chemicals are being used, for example, in dairy farms. They're being used in containers where they put milk. I mean, yeah, you can say you're banning it from the bottles, but it's still going to somehow end up in your body. So I think we need to think about these issues on a broader level.
Yeah, and so it sounds like just voluntarily not using it in your water bottles in America probably won't be enough, that we need to actually ban it in industrial use and things like that.
Exactly.
Well, you know, it's in the lining of aluminum cans. So if you look at any aluminum can in your cabinet, it's going to have BPA as a lining. And the chemical industry is very much against regulating BPA at all. It is an incredibly convenient chemical to use. It is in so many things. It's even in the thermal receipts that you get at the gas station or at the cash register, anywhere. BPA is in there. Every time you touch those receipts, they've actually found that that cashiers at stores have much higher levels of BPA in their blood, and they believe it's because they handle the thermal receipts.
Well, there is a silver lining for you. The next time, you know, a cashier says, "Would you like a receipt with that?" Just say no.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll be able to have kids in a couple decades.